West Denver. Sleep deprived and heavily caffeinated.
All right, let's do this then.
This is the Jeff and Bill Show.
I don't agree with that.
They don't always agree, but hey, at least they have coffee.
Coffee.
And each other.
I love you, man.
God help us.
I want to bless him. We need all the help we can get.
Now here's Jeff Hunt and Bill Thorpe. The Jeff and Bill Show on News Talk 710 KNUS.
$7 a.m. in the Mile High City on this Wednesday, September 10th, 2025. Good morning, Denver, Colorado. You've tuned in to the Jeff and Bill Show, News Talk 710 KNUS. I'm your co-host, Jeff Hunt, along with Bill Thorpe, bringing you the freshest insights, hottest takes from the right, left, and center. Coming up this hour, President Trump's Maha strategy report released. Trump back at it again, leading the charge with RFK Jr. to tackle the childhood chronic disease crisis head on, taking big pharma and big food to task. We'll be talking more about what they plan to do there. Now it's time, though, for news and comment with Blake Olson.
Blake Olson.
Blake Olson, news and comment.
Good morning, hump day. Wednesday, 57 and sunny in Denver, expecting a high of 90 today. This portion of the news sponsored by Pastor Camp Heating and Air Conditioning at 303-777-1234 to learn more about special savings opportunities on Lennox equipment. Our top story. Oh, yeah. Back at it again. DJT goes to Joe's Seafood last night in D.C. with VP JD and Marco Rubio, and the commies make their way into the restaurant to compare the president to Hitler again. The Hitler of our time. DJT.
Just a reminder, too, that Bush was regularly compared to Hitler.
Yes,
I mean,
great point.
I mean, every time a Republican gets elected, the left immediately jumps to equating them with Hitler.
Absolutely.
I just don't think it lands anymore. I mean, people are just like,
it doesn't,
whatever, dude. If everybody's Hitler, nobody is.
So true. So true. I mean, come up with another dictator who's murdered other people. There's about 20 of them,
right?
At least, start calling him Pol Pot or something. I mean, jeez. DJT will be in New York City tomorrow to remember 9/11, and tomorrow night he'll be in the Bronx for a Yankees game. Elected leaders cheering the announcement of a new stadium location for the Broncos. The owners of the Broncos announced that they want to build a new domed stadium with a retractable roof on the 58-acre parcel at Burnham Yard. The ownership group plans to pay for most of the real estate acquisition and construction costs. Hopefully that holds up. And residents are being told that no taxpayer money will be used for the stadium. Amen. And we'll see what happens in the future as they continue to show the plans and figure out what they're going to do with the former at the time, right now, the present Mile High Stadium. We'll see what happens with that. The biggest thing to me is the fact that you'll definitely see a Super Bowl in Denver now with a dome and a retractable roof. It'll be huge for the Buckhorn Exchange restaurant also, oldest in the city. And more than likely it'll be right near the what will probably look like a spaceship. That's my guess. And as Billy said, the grass may be an issue, but then, the big dope greenhouse is just down the street near 6th and I-25, so they have no problem growing grass at all there. I had to. The Prime Minister of Poland is calling for an official meeting of NATO after Russian drones entered the country's airspace. Prime Minister Donald Tusk said today that Poland would formally request the invocation of NATO's Article 4, which calls for all nations in the military alliance to consult with each other when an allied nation is threatened. The stabbing in Charlotte on the light rail continues to spark more conversation on CNN. The lefties don't think crazy murdering types who commit 14 crimes and let out should be institutionalized, evidently.
The discussions that we've had earlier this week is that one of the failures that we have is that we have not figured out how to actually provide that kind of care. That, if someone is actually seriously mentally ill, maybe on the verge of violence, where do they go?
We're unwilling to.
It gets better.
North Carolina, not on the verge of violence, actually demonstrated violence in the past and nobody flagged it. Actually, the police, to your point, said, we're going to refer you to more resources, and that went nowhere. So there were.
They hate what she's about to say here.
Multiple.
Her name is Downey here, Carolyn Downey.
Flagged it. He served time for his violent offenses.
Not for his schizophrenia.
Why
That's not a crime.
That's not a crime.
No, I know, but I'm saying that was compounding this entire issue.
Yeah, I know,
the
but I'm
fact that he
saying
lashed out violently on that.
I know. I'm just saying he did actually serve time for the violent offenses that he committed.
But he was a career criminal, a repeat offender who was let back onto our streets despite a really bad criminal record that suggests he should have been locked away for life because he was threatening the public. He was a menace to society.
He should have been locked away for life for what now?
He should have.
They will crawl over broken glass to excuse these types of people's behavior. It's amazing. Well, he didn't get enough services. It's our fault. It's our fault as a society that he murdered. Now, guys, question to you.
Yes.
Have you watched the video?
Yes, and it was worse than I thought.
Horrible.
That was worse than I could ever imagine. I mean, because she's still alive after he tries to, cut her head off.
It's a very fast attack. It happens just 3 strikes very quickly. She's completely stunned. And I don't know if you've ever been assaulted out of nowhere. I have.
Same here.
Yeah. It catches you off guard because you're like,
absolutely.
Like, this wasn't, let's go outside and fight and you get your fisticuffs up and you're expecting stuff. She's in shock. And you get this sense looking at her, and we're talking about the murder of Irina Zaruska, by the way.
Right.
I'm going to keep saying her name.
Yeah,
but
absolutely.
She has this shocked look on her face, almost as if she's confused. Did she do something to warrant this? What happened? Why did she just get struck that way? Yes. And she's also evaluating the damage that's happened to her. So,
absolutely.
Right, like you don't know what happened. She doesn't even know what happened. She's stunned. She's fearful. She's confused. Yeah. And then, it is so hard to watch. You watch her slowly slump over as she loses consciousness.
Yes.
And then completely falls out of her chair. Everybody around her doesn't react. Nobody comes to her aid for at least about 30 seconds, okay?
Exactly.
Then you just watch the blood pour out all over the floor of this light rail car. And eventually some people come to her attention, but she died alone. She died confused. She died scared. This was a completely unwarranted attack. And I want to take a moment here because I got into it with Chris Vanderveen at Channel 9 last night over this. Okay? Here's what Chris writes about why we're paying attention to this. Now, remember, Chris Vanderveen, investigative reporter, Channel 9. Okay? Edward R. Murrow Award winner, by the way. It's in his bio. The reason we're paying attention to this and not other attacks that have taken place, for instance, like here in Colorado, is because the victim has blonde hair.
Oh my God.
And then he lists a whole other list of attacks that have taken place that we're not talking about, okay?
Wow.
And then he comes at me and says, why haven't you talked about all these other things? And I remind him in his list he doesn't provide the name Lee Keltner anywhere in the list. But that's an aside. we have talked, Bill and I have talked about some of these attacks that have taken place on RTD, okay? But I want to remind Chris, and I remind everybody else, it's basically weekly that we talk about my theory of the woman in pearls and a fur coat, which means that the city has to be so safe. And Mike Johnston should make the city of Denver so safe that a woman in pearls and a fur coat can freely walk the city, enjoy the plays, go out to eat at restaurants. And in this case, in North Carolina, it's clearly not that safe, right? Because you have a woman that's not doing anything, that's not even robbed, that's murdered by this crazy person, okay?
Yep.
So the other thing, too, is you have a national battle, Chris Vanderveen, going on regarding the safety of our communities and cities, right? You have Democrat mayors suing, fighting, and governors, too, fighting Donald Trump every step of the way to put National Guard troops in these cities, not to restrict civil rights, not to randomly arrest American citizens, but to make cities safer. And in the midst of this national debate that's taken place on camera for everybody to see, you have an innocent woman stabbed to death by a man that should have never been out and was out in part because of Democrat policies in cities that Democrats fight Republicans to try to make safer, and instead, and in fact say every time we try to more police, or how about the National Guard, or how about we address the crime issue, Mike Johnston and others saying that it is the use of the National Guards that is dangerous. Not these killers that are out there, the use of the National Guards. So this, I pray, is a turning point in America to address the crime in the cities, to address these weak DAs, these progressive judges that believe that they need to release these guys back out into the streets. And this will change. Chris Vanderveen, this is not about the color of the woman's skin and hair color and that type of thing. The national outrage is we're tired of watching innocent people die, and you have it right there on camera. You can watch the whole thing happen.
Absolutely.
That's why this is a national story. And to dismiss it, to say this is the only reason you care is because of her skin color. Give me a break.
An innocent victim. If it was a black female, we would be doing the same thing.
If this was a white man,
real media,
Bill
right.
or Blake, if this was a white man that stabbed a black woman and then walked away saying, got the black girl, like this guy said, I got the white girl, there would be a national firestorm, and rightly so there would be.
Sure.
Because don't kill anybody because of their race.
Exactly.
But you guys, for a perfect example, Channel 9, Chris Vanderveen this morning dismissing the case because it doesn't fit a racial narrative that he has.
That's sick. No, don't apologize. If it were let's say it were a woman who was white and black, maybe had mixed, but would it matter? Does it matter?
Really shouldn't. I wish I lived in a society that didn't.
No, it doesn't matter. I mean, the security footage of this is just so clear and horrific. I mean, that has a lot to do with it. But you know what? Guess what? It's in a major city. I mean, Charlotte is, their major city in North Carolina. She's on a light rail. How many millions of people do this every day? And it's a young single woman, just going about her day, and she gets stabbed in the neck. And this is the garbage that we allow to happen. And it was, it's not like, we didn't see this coming. This guy's never been to jail before, never had issues. I've got to play this though. Okay. So Geraldo was on fire.
My first thought was, what's the death penalty statute in North Carolina? So then I felt relief when the feds came in, and I knew that the death penalty would be on the table because it was a federal death penalty offense. And then I saw, when I read further, that although there has not been an execution in North Carolina since 2006, that they have firing squads. And I think that if you asked for volunteers for firing squads, they would be such a big crowd that you wouldn't be able to deal with it. Why? Because he knifed her from the back. He almost cut her head off. She came from Ukraine. I could throw up talking about it.
I agree.
And that image of her after the attack, she's looking up, terrified.
Oh, it's just I was not expecting that. I mean, when I saw the remainder of the video, it's just horrible. Just
I think
horrible. And she loved America. She loved America.
She did.
Her family wants
she was
her to
thrilled to be here. That's right.
So we should all be praising the fact that people want to come here. They want to be safe, and we need to fight crime, and we need to be tough on crime.
I don't think you should show this to your kids.
No.
I do think you should show it to your teenagers.
I agree.
Because I think you need to have a very serious conversation about being aware of your surroundings. And this doesn't, I'm not saying this has anything to do with the guy's race, skin color, anything like that. But you put yourself in these public situations. I mean, we have a sheriff we were going to talk to during the 9 o'clock hour who, because of the laws set up in Colorado, is saying, I can't hold this guy. There is a danger out there. I'm sorry. There's a danger out there. That's what Steve Reams is going to tell us at the 9 o'clock hour because of the laws that exist in the state. And it's not just Jared Polis. Jared Polis did sign it. But you have Republicans that voted for this law, Republicans that know about this law, and we have not led the effort to get a special session the way we should to address this. So you have a very dangerous community. Guys, you can't walk the 16th Street Mall without having your throat slit.
Absolutely.
Okay, so part of the education to your teenagers that are going out there and experiencing the world for the first time is whether you're on a light rail or you're going to the 16th Street Mall or anything else, you better be very deadly serious about your surroundings.
No doubt.
I think you show it. I think if your kids are over the age of 14, you watch that video.
I agree with you. All right, it's 55 in Lakewood, 58 in Parker, 57 in Denver. Jeff and Billy continue. It's Wednesday. Blake Olson, News Talk 710 KNUS.
Low pressure over the Pacific Northwest will slowly migrate eastward in the days ahead, keeping a moist, mild southwest wind flow into Colorado, keeping temperatures warm and giving us a daily chance through Saturday for afternoon and evening scattered showers and thunderstorms. Highs will be 80s overnight, lows 50s. Weather is a service of L&L Heating and Air Conditioning. For quick, trustworthy, and dependable service, call L&L Heating and Air Conditioning at 720-851-1691. Visit them online at bestdenverhvac.com. You'll be comfortable with L&L. Meteorologist Don Day in the 710 KNUS Weather Center.
Well, from the highly esteemed news desk of 710 KNUS, we have a correction to make.
Yeah, I was wrong about the botulism the spider venom. It was used early on in testing. I didn't do enough research, and so, yeah, it's on me. It is botulism toxin. There is a botulism C that they can combine with some of it, and I had conflated, unfortunately. I got mixed up in my mind. Tests and serums they're doing right now with funnel web venom and also with tarantula venom. Tarantula venom, they're being used, I had to go double check, on a pain reliever, and the funnel web venom they're using in a study to help with recovery of muscle tissue and stuff post-heart attack. So, yeah, got my studies wrong. Sorry about that. Apologize. I was wrong.
I would find it hilarious if tarantula venom became relevant to the use of Botox, and cougars from all over Colorado are down at the tarantula,
the thing is, the tarantula
road
venom,
crossing.
They're looking at it as
an effort to grab
they're
them.
looking at it as a pain reliever. So it could be more common than Botox, in theory, is what they're looking at. That's what the tarantula venom they're looking at as a form of a painkiller. Cool. Yeah. So interesting. Yeah.
Well,
fair enough.
Speaking of Maha.
Oh, nice transition.
Trump administration releasing long-awaited Maha roadmap. This coming from Politico. The Trump administration's highly anticipated policy strategy to improve children's health outcomes targets ultra-processed food, vaccine use, and exposure to chemicals, but doesn't go as far as some industry groups feared in proposing new regulations. The Make America Healthy Again Commission report, released yesterday, largely mirrors the draft plan officials shared with industry representatives last month. It stops short of restrictions on pesticide use, focusing instead on changes like reforming FDA regulatory pathways, investigating food ingredients, modernizing American vaccines, and improving the childhood vaccine schedule. In some areas, it advances long-held industry priorities that public health advocates say could increase the very health risks that fueled the Maha movement, such as accelerating reviews of new chemicals. The final strategy represents a significant win for the farm industry, which successfully lobbied the White House and President Trump to temper Robert F. Kennedy Jr.'s crackdown on common agricultural production practices. The document bookends a report that came out in May that laid out the Trump administration sees as the root cause of children's growing rates of chronic diseases. Kennedy saying the strategy represents the most sweeping reform agenda in modern history, realigning our food and health systems, driving education, unleashing science to protect America's children and families. We are ending the corporate capture of public health, restoring transparency, and putting gold standard science, not special interests, at the center of every decision. So, what do you think of this? I'm intrigued by the problem that we're facing, and they lay it out in this report, that we're spending a lot of money. And in fact, the per capita amount has increased dramatically in the amount of money we're spending on health in this country. But our chronic disease rate, not getting any better. In fact, it's getting a lot worse. Obesity, getting a lot worse. So what do you attribute this to? My mind was kind of opened, Bill, recently reading a book called The Least of Us, which gets into how it starts out with where we are with fentanyl and how it was created. And there's essentially this lab that, I think it's in Switzerland or Sweden, one of those European countries, that got into the molecular structure of the drugs that we consume in order, from their perspective, and I think it was a noble perspective, to make it more efficient. They primarily looked at morphine and part of the problems with morphine and the fact that a good chunk of the morphine that was administered never actually got to the brain. It was absorbed into fatty tissues and stuff like that. So could they come up with something that was created in a lab that would be more effective at reducing pain? Well, anesthesiologists eventually leaked it and the formula got out, and now we have this giant fentanyl crisis. But he makes the argument that we have taken that notion of chemistry, of molecular development, and pushed it into every aspect of our lives, including our food development, that if you want to get into gateway drugs, gateway drug to drug use really isn't marijuana, it's sugar. So we have turned the food processing industry into this addiction industry that looks at the food that we consume and looks for ways to adjust it to not make it healthy, to not make it better for your body, but to make it more addictive so that you consume it more. And this was reaffirmed in an article I read recently in seeing how food companies are adjusting their products to combat Ozempic. So Ozempic has become a tool that, from my understanding, I'm not a user of it. Maybe, Bill, you have some better insight. But from what I understand is it reduces your cravings. And so makes you feel full. Therefore, you consume less calories and you lose weight that way. Food companies are now not looking at ways to make you healthy, but chemically adjusting their food to make it more addictive to combat Ozempic. So having my eyes kind of opened on what's happened with the food that we consume, I go, we're so far from healthy vegetables and meat and all that stuff into an all-out battle for revenue using chemical adjustment in order to not make you healthy, but to make you a bigger consumer of their product. I like the fact that the Trump administration is willing to take this on. What are your thoughts?
Well, the first thing is, I got a question there. Is it the food company's job to make you healthy? Is that their job?
That's a good question.
And that's really the idea is that the goal? Is what they have to produce, does it have to make you healthy? And if so, how do we then define healthy? And part of the friction I see in this approach is we have some people that talk about limited government, small government. I don't want big government programs. I don't want government to, until we're talking about this. Now I want the government to control so many aspects of what we want it to do. That's questionable, given the limited government people that, that trumpet that all the time, because this is a big, giant government program that is going to create a whole bunch of new rules and guidelines. However, it's weird, not on the pesticides. That was weird. Just that we were going to change the approval process on the pesticides. That was weird to me because we also, through Doge, have cut the people responsible for doing that job. And that's the other question I have inside of this. After we went through and we Doged everything, we cut a whole bunch of funding on vaccines and science and infectious diseases. And we cut a whole bunch of funding on food and environment and water. And now we're supposed to then solve that problem after we fired a lot of the people that were doing the work. That's a really weird one, where we had government agencies and departments. We can say you didn't like what they were doing or thought they were doing the wrong thing. However, it was the idea of we were going to make government more efficient. To get to where this Maha paper needs to go, you're going to have more departments. You're going to have more people. You're going to have more tests. Yet you just fired a whole bunch of them. So are we just rewinding the tape and going back to where we were months ago? Are we undoging the Doge? I don't understand. That's what I can't figure out inside of this Maha. There's no real steps forward. There's no plan inside of this to get this accomplished. And to me, it just looks like a lot of government funding, government research, government rules, which I thought is what we were trying to get away from in the first place with Maha and the Doge. So I don't understand what the hell's going on here.
Okay,
Not the first time this morning,
let's look at the problem. Okay, let's start there. Do you believe there's a chronic disease epidemic in America?
No. I disagree with the idea of epidemic. I do think that we have a chronic disease. I do think we have a chronic disease problem.
Okay.
Yeah.
And what do you attribute it to?
I don't know. I think there are a variety of that. But I don't think there is one cause, because I think there are millions of people. And there's probably going to be a variety of different causes. And looking at that and pointing back to that being one cause, and I have a problem looking at it and saying, well, the problem is the science, when the science has been the solution more times than not, as far as our solutions to disease and chronic illnesses and problems like that.
Okay, well, let's pick a problem. What's one component driving the chronic illness problem in America?
I don't know. I mean, probably some of the chemicals that we ingest. Some of it might be our lifestyle. Could be things like that, but it could be a number of other things as well. It could be environmental factors. It could be a series of things. Don't know. I mean, like in Flint, Michigan, we had lead problems because the water was bad. So there could be a lot of other issues, inside of it.
Okay.
So,
Do one of the key arguments that comes from Maha, Robert F. Kennedy, and others is that special interest groups, pharmaceutical companies, food companies, and others have co-opted the system to drive a profit agenda ahead of all else. And they look at the fact that we're spending a lot of money on life expectancy and health expenditures, and it's actually getting worse. So how would we spend more money to improve our health and get worse outcomes?
Here'd be the first thing we should do is it getting worse everywhere?
So in
and
their
what I mean
list,
by that
in
is
their list,
France, England,
no.
Germany, Japan.
No.
Okay.
No. So
Then
America seems to be uniquely.
Then the easiest thing to
positioned
do is, what is the uniqueness? What are the different factors inside of that we may have that they don't? That's what I would start looking at. And part of that is going to be some of the chemical composition of our ultra-processed foods. Yeah, some of that is probably going to be there. Is that necessarily a causal thing? I'm not sure. But could it be a correlation? And could it also lead to other problems? Yeah, that could happen. So that seems, but the issue is this. Remember, this would be the Trump administration and everyone else talking about businesses chasing the profit motive.
Correct.
Yeah. So we don't want them doing that in our capitalist society. And if you're telling me that these companies should not be chasing the profit motive, I start asking questions about, and I'm doing this tongue in cheek, whether or not you've become one of those damn communists that's trying to destroy America. Because when we talk about that,
there's text messages coming in about that, right?
Exactly.
So I think it's very easy. I don't think that there's a problem at all about this, because you say the same thing about the drug cartel, right? It's a profit-driven entity that's willing to sacrifice its consumers in order to make money, all right? A conservative worldview is not profit at all takes, at all times, damn the health of the people that may deal with it or with the consequences of this. When you have, and I think it's perfectly consistent, when you have addiction for profit schemes that harm the consumer as well as general society, I think there's absolutely a role for the government to step in and to address that, whether you're a tobacco company, whether you're a drug cartel, whether you're gambling, sports gambling. That's why I don't like casinos either. Okay? There is a role for the government to step in and go, look, you making a ton of money while sacrificing the health and well-being of people around you? I think it's right for the government to step in, ask some questions, look at some regulations. And here's my question. Do you put now food and pharmaceutical companies and all those ads you see up there, and Pfizer sponsoring everything, meanwhile pushing an agenda? What MAGA is arguing is that the current system we have set up makes it the most amount of money if you are sick and ill, not if you are healthy. And the incentives behind all this need to be questioned. All right, let's get to the phone lines. Let's get to a break. We haven't done our first break yet. Let's get to a break, then we'll get to the phone lines. You're listening to The Jeff and Bill Show.
This is Denver's talk leader, News Talk 710 KNUS.
Welcome back to the Jeff and Bill Show. Phone lines jam-packed, text messages hot. Trump administration released its long-awaited MAHA roadmap, a new strategy to address some of the chronic diseases we're facing in this country. What do you think of it? Let's go to Mary, Wyoming. Good morning, Mary. You're on with Jeff and Bill.
Morning.
Good morning. Good morning. The thing that I would share is that you're so right about sugar, it being the addiction. I had stage 3 cancer. And when I did get it, it completely out of the blue, I went in for exam. She was a little German lady, sat me down and she said, "Do you have a will?" And I kind of looked at her. She said, "You have stage 3 cancer." And I looked at alternatives. I didn't want to do the chemotherapy and radiation. And I went to a naturopath, and what we started with was the first thing I had to get rid of, because I was the Burger King queen, and would you supersize it, then I was 250 pounds, it was, you got to get rid of the sugar. And that was the hardest addiction to drop, was getting rid of that sugar.
And Mary, part of this effort to address our health problems in this country has to do with the emphasis. You bring up chemotherapy. There's a book out there called Good Energy that's put together by Casey and Callie Means, brother and sister, brilliant people, educated at the top levels. But they argue that our entire healthcare industry is geared towards fixing problems that have already existed, not how do you live a healthy lifestyle in order to make sure those problems never come in the first place. So, and this person is set up to be, I think, Trump's new Surgeon General. They want to get the industry focused in on making healthy decisions way ahead of where the real profit is right now, which is fixing problems. Does that change need to be made?
Yes, and it's the food. That was the other problem that I had to change. No processed food, no red meat. I had to go, I was eating buffalo, natural, grass-fed, and, thing. My point is that was what, and I did have a oncologist. And what I was doing was not, because I was not going the chemo surgery way. I would go every 6 months, and that's all that my PP paid for, because everything else cost, eating healthy was expensive.
Yeah,
eating
now,
organic
Mary,
was expensive.
Let me stop you right there. Now, the fact that eating healthy is more expensive, is that then prohibitive to people that are poor? Would that be something that we'd have to institute, something like a price control on that one? And the other question I've got is, you talked about the doctor telling you to not eat red meat. Does that mean in a roundabout way that maybe Colorado Governor Polis was right with his no-eat meat days? We made fun of him for that, but if you were told not to eat meat, and if that is part of a healthier lifestyle, as difficult as it is to say, was Polis right? Your thoughts?
Well, this was, you remember, 80 years old, and this was 25 years ago. So the idea of the grass-fed meat that we can get then was not, you know what I mean? It was not readily available. That's why I had to go to a butcher and get more of the non-processed stuff. Chicken, fish, all of that was, on my diet. I also did acupuncture. I had to learn how to do mediation. There was a number of things that I did to do it. And just wanted to say about my oncologist, you know what their position was? Every 6 months I went in and got tested. She would say, "I don't know what you're doing. I don't want to know what you're doing. But whatever you're doing, keep on doing it."
Wow.
That
Mary,
was the mentality.
great call.
Oh, that's fantastic.
Sure appreciate it. Thanks so
much.
I think it's important to point out with regards to the Meat Out Day that its roots were kind of more in the animal rights movement.
Oh, sure. The roots. But even then, a blind squirrel can find a nut every once in a while. So even if his motivations was wrong, was he right in the end? That's kind of a twisty question there.
No, I don't think he's right. I think his effort was to try to harm the farmers of Colorado more than anything else. All right,
if we're not
Frank,
supposed to eat as much red meat, I
in
don't
Denver,
know.
Frank, you're on with Jeff and Bill.
First of all, congratulations to Mary for making those healthy changes and improving her health and getting rid of that disease process. second, I wanted to tell you about a really important book that I read 7 or 8 years ago about this weight issue, and it's called The End of Overeating. The End of Overeating. And it talks about a 65-year-old pediatrician who retired, had time on his hands, always wondered why he had been overweight. Started researching it. He came up with some lab research that showed that there are 3 things that the human brain craves, because going back into our history, that they didn't have them in abundance. And those things were, 1, Mary pointed out, sugar. 2nd was fat. 3rd was salt. And they used this. Guess who used it? Frito-Lay used it to develop the, wait for it, Dorito chip. And it's a craving that our brain wants. And they came up with a slogan, bet you can't eat just one. So they hyper-particleized the salt and the flavoring, sugar, fat, and salt, and that's why a Doritos chip tastes so good on your tongue, and you want to eat more. But anyway, he was seeing so much overweight in both the kids he was seeing and in himself that they are using one of our brain weaknesses, the same for the chemical fentanyl that the chemists have used and turned against us. So these things are not widely known. You have to seek them out. And I don't agree with everything that Kennedy does, but I sure do agree with the overall approach that he and Trump are taking to try to get some of these bad things out of our food chains and move us toward healthier eating.
Yep, Frank, I agree with you. I think people are recognizing there is a problem that's happening out there. What's the solution? Would love to hear from you. Give us a call, 303-696-1971. You're listening to The Jeff and Bill Show.
One of the questions I have is if RFK Jr. doesn't even trust the science behind vaccines, can we trust him with the science behind healthy eating? Give us a call, 303-696-1971. This is Denver's talk leader, News Talk 710, KNUS.
Welcome back to the Jeff and Bill Show. Great intro song for our next caller, Barney Denver. Always good to hear from you, sir.
Yeah,
Thanks
morning.
for calling us.
Don't suck up to me, Jeff. But first off, go to Polis. I think Polis did some of this stuff because he's looking out for his partner. Partner is real big on the animal rights thing, and I'm glad for that, to tell you the truth. But because I am a fruitcake when it comes to animals, and all I would say to you, Jeff, as a rancher, is all I'm asking for is the animals to be not stressed, to be treated decent, and fed right.
Yep.
So, feeding, do the math on the ethanol cake. I mean, it's nasty, gross, and you can tell the difference. The steaks I buy now, they're $20 steaks, and they taste good. I think they're healthy. I don't know, but going back to the woman, and God bless her. I mean, good for her. But any doctor in this day and age, you walk in the door and he tells you you've got 3 years to live or 3 months. He's pretty much full of crap. Let's just go with that. And she complained about chemo. I think this chemo stuff now, they don't blow you up with it. They've gotten it down to an art. They're much better. Radiation too. But going back to the food and everything you eat, and it's funny you guys are talking about this. My daughter thinks I should eat dandelion root and everything would be fine. There does come a point where it's just DNA. I quit drinking when I was 23 years old, and I drank my rear end off, killed it. I've never done drugs. I don't drink. No drinking, no smoking, no nothing. And I've got a health issue that shouldn't be there. So I'm 200 pounds. I'm 6 foot. I used to weigh 230, but I was a lot muscular. But I don't, even as a truck driver, I still ate pretty decent. I never walked into Burger King and ordered 3 Whoppers and a 39-ounce Mountain Dew. But there does come a point where your DNA, look at these people that are 38 years old and they're fit as could be, and they drop dead of a heart attack, or, they drop dead of some kind of cancer.
I understand the genetics. Believe me, we have this conversation as well. We were talking about a lady that lived to 126, I think, in France, and smoked every day of her life. You do get those one-offs, but the White House has a whole series of graphs. America spends more per capita with regards to health and life expectancy, has the worst out of all the developed nations.
I've been saying that for years.
Our obesity rate's higher than everybody else. Our pre-diabetic among kids is higher than everybody else. Our autism rate's higher than everybody else. Cancer rates are higher than everybody else. So what do you attribute that to?
Right. It's not, we eat like crap is part of it. There's no doubt about it. But for that guy to bring up Dorito chips, if I eat a Dorito chip, I think I'd puke. I don't have any desire to eat one Dorito, much less 20 or 30. So I think a lot of it's just what you're accustomed to. You walk into a restaurant and you eat a steak and it tastes like they dumped a whole salt shaker on it, and they think that's good.
And butter. Don't forget the butter. When it's resting, they'll put butter on top of it.
Oh, buddy, don't knock butter. I love butter.
Oh, I know. I'm just saying that's what they do.
Lobster tails on the weekend. Oh, my God. I love that butter. You can't, butter.
Now, here, Barney, I got something for you here, for you and Jeff, okay? Because we talk about the idea of all the chemicals and all the processed in our food and everything else. And there seems to be this idea that, we have over-scienced our food and we have over-scienced, and that's part of the problem here. But what I want to say is that when we were still hunter-gatherers, about 50% of humans died at the age of 30. In the 1840s, about 50% of the humans died at the age of 35. Today, it's about 72. Now, those people in the 1840s were outside getting our exercise all the time, drinking clean water, breathing clean air, and eating all organic food. And 50% of them were dead by the age of 35. So at some point, science does help us, because science is the reason we're here.
With disease, yes.
Yeah.
Malaria, those types of things.
Yeah, prenatal care.
You drop dead because you got ammonia. I mean, there's a lot of reasons. But you cannot disagree with, call RFK what he is or not, but it's a good thing that I think it's a great thing that they go after these. I think these pharmaceutical companies, they get away with a lot. And yes, they've done a lot of good, but man, I don't know. They're just, we are.
But
there's
Barney,
a lot of,
while this might be a great goal, is he the one that can lead us to the promised land, given the fact that he is skeptical of science on its face? Is he the one then that can determine this?
Is he skeptical of science, or is he skeptical of the influences determining science?
No, he's skeptical of science.
I'll tell you what. Everybody wants to bring up RFK. Look who we had before RFK. So, and you look at some of these politicians, they're not exactly, I don't know, if you're going to talk to me about health food, you probably shouldn't weigh 280 pounds at 5'8". Like, I don't want to hear it. I'm just saying.
Barney, great call. Always
Barney.
appreciated. A ton of fun. I'm not sucking up. It's honest. It's fun to have Barney call. You're talented, buddy.
Voice.
So, in the 8 o'clock hour, Barb Kirkmeyer, state senator on the Joint Budget Committee, now running for the Republican nominee for governor. She's going to join us. Could she be the next governor? And why is she better than the other Republicans in this race? We'll talk about it all. You're listening to The Jeff and Bill Show.
This is Denver's talk leader, News Talk 710 KNUS.